Hi guys, Tuga here with a new video, and this video is some final tuning before the pre-patch. And yes, we have a lot of things to discuss, and I am actually very excited because I did spoil myself because I wanted to see if it was worth to make a video, and you can already bet like I have a huge smile. So there's many things we are going to discuss, and I'm looking forward to discuss it with you guys. So let's talk about Death Knights first. Uh, Again, the patch notes is gigantic, so the video will be long. But please do stay here so I can give you my opinion and my insights from the beta, if it's going to be somewhat helpful for PvP or helpful for whatever content you want to do, and if it's going to be noticeable once you're going to be in the pre-patch and maybe season 1 of the War Within. So, Death Strike can now only heal the Death Knight for a percentage of damage taken from a given damage event once. Death Strike that healed minimum health amount do not count as using damage events in this way. I'm going to say that I don't really understand, so if someone understands that in the comment section below, from what I understand is you can only heal a percent of the damage taken from, let's say, a Chaos Bolt, but not like from Immolate plus Chaos Bolt, I guess. Or multiple dots or whatever. It's a bit different. Like, I think it doesn't change too much, but it might be a nerf, to be fair, but we'll have to see. Enfeeble, reduce, maybe it's a buff. Until the minimum amount do not count as using the damage events in this way. I don't know. We'll have to see. Enfeeble reduces damage dealt to you by 12% instead of 15, so that's a nerf. And no magic reduces magic damage taken by 8 instead of 10. That's a nerf, but I think that's the same for every single class. Deathbringer, which is my favorite hero talent for Death Knights. Reaper's Mark is now a 45-second cooldown, which doesn't really change too much because Swift End, which is also a talent from the hero talents, is going to reduce the Reaper's Mark by 15 seconds instead of 30 seconds. So it's going to be the same 30 seconds regardless, but at least at the start of your hero talent you will get a 45 second CD Reaper's Mark. But the biggest thing is Frost Reaper's Mark now scales with Mastery Frozen Heart. Wave of Souls as well and Exterminate as well. It will do some gigantic damage. I do reckon it's going to get nerfed. I don't know if in PvP it's going to get nerfed. Might be, but I think this is going to be insane amount of damage. But with the health pools being very high, I don't think it's that much of a bad thing. We'll have to see, to be fair. It depends on the pacing of the game. Rider of the Apocalypse, which is Frost and Holy, damage of all riders reduced by 15%. Hungering Thirst disease also reduced for everything, reduced to 10% instead of 15. A Feast of Souls now increases damage of runic power spenders by 20%, was 30%. Trolls by Bane, Ice Fury damage reduced by 10%, and Death damage reduced by 10%. Overall, I did play Ride of the Apocalypse. It was kind of deserved because of all the passive damage you got from those riders, from those diseases, from those icy furies and such. So I think it's kind of deserved because it's already a very packed hero talent. I would say like the talents that you're going to pick are very packed, and it's more or less more of a utility based hero talent instead of like Deathbringer, but it has really rival, like you can rival the damage from Deathbringer and Ride of the Apocalypse. So again, it's going to be the go-to for Unholy Decay. I think Frost Decay, I will be playing Deathbringer. I really like that. I don't care about the mount. It might be that I'm going to care about it, but I really like the Deathbringer hero tones. Very flavorful as well. Blood, I'm going to read it quickly, but I don't really care too much for PvP right now. It's nerfed. The consumptions are nerfed. Rapid Decomposition, Blood, Plague, and Decay now deal 15% fast instead of 18%. Coagulate is now 25% per stack instead of 30%, so that's also a nerf. And the whole tank changes are for every single tank, so I think there is probably a tank YouTuber going to talk about that. I'm going to leave that for them. Overall, I'm going to skip the changes about tanks. I'm very sorry, because I think it's very hard. I cannot give you an opinion. I'll be just reading it. So just pause the video if you want to read about it. But I don't really have an opinion currently about it. So I cannot really give you anything. Reduce damage on Glacial Advance, Icy Death Torrent by 15% together. Enduring Strength is now 15% instead of 20%. I think that's normal because it is the half of the strength you're getting from Pillar of Frost. plus also the increase of the duration. But yeah, I think Enduring Strength is interesting with how it could be played for CK. Shuddering Blade got nerfed by 10% instead of like 125 is going to be 115. It's still going to be a talent that is not going to be the go-to because it depends on the build you're going to play. But I think it's still going to be more strong in the War Within compared to Dragonflight. It will always depend on PvP modifiers, obviously. Unholy Decay got a few nerfs, especially on the Eben Fever is going to be 12%. Bursting Swords is now going to be 16% instead of 20%. Bursting Swords damage reduced by 8%, so that's a big nerf. Like together, it's really big. Super Strain now applies Blood Plague and Frost Fever at 75% instead of 80%. It's more of a pad damage, anyways. Overall, it's kind of deserved, although I think it's like too little. I think it kind of deserved more nerfs. From what I've gathered on the beta, I did like insane amount of damage, which is more often unhealable. But we'll have to see with all the combinations of all the nerfs with the hero tons plus deaths and maybe PvP tons that it could be enough. PvP changes. Demon Hunter Live by the Glaive now restores 2% of the maximum health instead of 4. That's normal because they are actually actively nerfing passive Leech and Healing, which is probably in the same category of this. Hero Tons Aldraki Reaver Incisive Blade effectiveness reduced to 15%. I don't have an opinion about it because I don't really know too much about Demon Hunter right now. Fellscarred Havoc Demon Surge no longer increases armor or max health while your demon form is active, so less defensives. And Demon Surge now causes Demon's Bite to generate 15 additional fury. It was 5 for Demon Blades while your demon form is active. Vengeance I don't really have an opinion about, so you might just pause really quickly if you want to read it, but I don't have an opinion. It's too difficult for me to judge if it's going to be massive or not. Resto Druid and other hero tons. That's interesting because regrowth initial heal increased by 30%, which is massive if you're doing like a NS with like Soul of the Forest regrowth. It's going to heal for massive amounts. Frenzy Regeneration is nerfed. That's big, especially PvP, so I hope they do something for PvP. But this is a massive nerf, like 12%. Like it's 20% now instead of 32%. I think it's a bit too much, we'll have to see. Iron Fervor increases armor by 112% instead of 120. Renewal heals for 20% of the maximum health instead of 30%. So that's an overall nerf towards personal healing, which was for every single class. So I think it's going to be okay for everyone. Dream Bloom healing increased by 20% for Keeper of the Grove. Power of Nature increases the healing of Rejuvenation, Efflorescence, and Life Bloom by 10%. Minor Cenarian Ward cost from Durability of Nature healing is increased by 100%. That's quite good. I like it because the minor Cenarian Ward was not that good, but this is going to be probably making it a bit more in line with the normal Cenarian Ward. It's still going to be a bit of a nerfed version of Cenarian Ward, but still, I think, worth to take. Bounteous Bloom, Grove Garden healing increased by 30%, so that's big instead of 20%. Grove's Inspiration increases Regrowth, Wild Growth, and Swiftman healing by 9%. 3% is actually big, but guys, like all these buffs are really going to come together once you're going to go into PvP. Potent Enchants causes Tree of Life granted by reforestations to last 3 seconds longer instead of 2, which gives you probably a second longer of a instant regrowth pretty much, which is quite good. Harmony of the Grove increases your healing by 6% for each active growth garden, and you often have like 2 or 3 whenever you're going to deal with bursts, so that's quite good. Wild Stalker, a bit of changes. Towards healing again, probably. Symbiotic Blooms prefer to target injured players over pets or minions. That's very good because it's very hateful to get like a heal on pet or a minion, while someone else is probably going to be a bit more needed about that. Symbiotic Blooms grow 30% more often. That's really nice. Bond with Nature now increases healing taken by 3% instead of 10%. That's the overall self-healing nerf. Harmonious Constitution now increases regrowth healing to yourself by 35% for restoration and 25% for feral. That's annoying nerf because I did like to have a bit more self heals as a feral druid. So that kind of sucks, but we'll have to see how it's going to be in PvP. Bursting growth through healing increased by 100%. Implant causes symbiotic blooms to grow for 6 seconds, was 4 seconds. And vigorous creepers increases the healing your spells do to affect targets by 20% instead of 6%. Garden rate changes I'm not going to talk about because I don't know anything about it, so my opinion is, like, again, something you can disregard. So you can just pause the video if you want to check that out. Restoration. Swift meant healing increased by 20%. That's quite good actually with all those buffs. Life Bloom healing over time increased by 20%. Life Bloom healing increased by 30%. And Cenarian War healing increased by 20%. So overall, a big buff towards Restoration Druid, and we'll have to see if it's going to translate in PvP. Evoker got like a huge buff across the board, which I think was a bit needed on the PTR, on the beta, but I think in PvP it always translates differently, right? So Disintegrate, Fire Breath, Azure Strike, and Deep Breath got a 10% buff. Verdant Embrace healing got increased by 20%. Leaving Flame healing increased by 30%. So that's for every single spec. Then you have the Hero Tons, Chrono Warden. Echoes cast from Resonating Sphere will no longer trigger or consume Golden Opportunity. Yeah, that's I'm going to say that I really like Flame Shaper if you're playing a Shaper, if you're playing Preservation Evoker. So that's the one I would be playing if I was playing Evoker. Consume Flame no longer double dips healing and damage modes. That's really a big nerf, but I think it was something you could see a mile away though. Engulf can now be stored in stasis. That is actually very strong for preservation. Engulf is like a big, like you can heal like lots with it, so it's very, very good. Traveling Flame will now prefer injured allies when seeking a new target for Dream Breath. Yeah, I think that's a good one as well. Skill Commander, Devastation of Augmentation, Melt Armor damage increased by 20%. Skill Commander is very fun for Devastation, that's what I know. So you would probably play Skill Commander in arenas, I think Flame Shaper into RBGs. But that's will always depend on the occasions and the comps and whatever you're facing. But that's how I see currently. I could be wrong because I'm not like an expert on Evoker, but I think those two are like predefined on like the game modes you're playing. Augmentation got a nerf on the Black Attunement, which is the maximum health, and Aspects Favor as well is nerfed, so that is what it is. The Devastation Invoker got a 10% buff across multiple talents or spells, which is Eternity Surge, Pyre, Shadowing Star, Unravel, and Firestorm. Preservation Invoker got a few buffs, so we have Spirit Bloom getting buffed 20%. Reversion will now extend its duration by 30% when it's refreshed, so that's I don't know if it's a buff or a nerf. Emerald Blossom and Echo Cast will no longer consume Essence Burst when they are released from stasis. That's more PvE because you're not going to stasis Emerald Blossom for sure. Life Bind will now trigger its healing from heals that are considered procs. Interesting, I like that. Field of Dreams procs will no longer incorrectly benefit from Titan's Gift. So that's a bug fix, but nerf probably. Hero Talents for the Hunter, we have Sentinel, which is an overall AoE nerf because we have now a target cap of 5. It's more of a Mythic Plus kind of thing. Sentinel now has a 2-second period instead of 1 second, and Sentinel damage increased by 100%. Overwatch now has a 15-second internal cooldown. So I think these two, like these three, are very good for PvP. That's for sure. Mage, we have Mass Barrier now, a cooldown of 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes. It's pretty big. But we have Spellslinger, Arcane. Embedded Arcane Splitter damage reduced by 20%. Oh, that's like, I think Arcane getting nerfed is normal, but I think it's a bit too much because they're keeping on nerfing it. But it might be too strong. So we have Embedded Arcane Splitter damage reduced by 20%. Arcane Splitter damage reduced by 20% as well. Splinter Storm damage reduced by 20%. Splintering Orbs, Arcane Orb generates 2 splinters per hit instead of 4. It's very big there. Whoa! Arcane Barrage damage reduced by 60%. That's quite big. Arcane Barrage damage increased by arcane charges increased to 90%. Okay. So they really want you to spend your arcane barrage with arcane charges, but I think that's normal. Arcane missiles damage reduced by 10%, arcane orb damage reduced by 10%. I do think arcane barrage is getting like an overall buff with it, if I'm not mistaken. That's a good thing. But the nerfs on arcane missiles and arcane orb I think is a bit normal because it's very spammable with current builds. We have monk changes here. Yulon grants again like passives, and leech is getting nerfed by the half of it, for example. Healing winds restores 10% of maximum health instead of 15%. We have hero tons, conduits of the celestial conduit damage reduced by 8%. Master of Harmony, manifestations effectiveness reduced to 50%, balance stratagem effect reduced to 3%, way of thousand strikes vitality reduced to 30%, and Brewmaster I don't really care right now because I don't know anything about them. And the same for every single tank. You can pause the video and check yourself and probably create an opinion for yourself because I don't really know anything about that tank spec. Maybe the only tank spec I can talk about is probably Protection Warrior, but even then, it's more of a PvP POV, so I don't know if you're going to be happy about that. Mistweavers get a few buffs here. We have Ancient Teachings now transfers 170% of the damage to healing instead of 150. Tear of Morning now causes 12% enveloping mist healing to transfer to allies with renewing mist instead of 20%. That's a nerf, and Vivify as well, 15% instead of 20%. Jade Bond now increases the mastery healing from Chi by 60% instead of 40%. Yulon's Grace now absorbs 1%. That's like again the passive damage, and the passive healing and passive shielding is getting nerfed, obviously. Vivify healing increased by 30%, and Gust of Mist healing increased by 10%. Right now, from the PvP POV, Fist Weaving is like on top of everything. It might be because of the Vivify buff that you are going to play more of a mistweaver. So it really depends. Like throughput is going to be always king in those regards. Windwalker got like a overall 8% nerf. They could like just write that, to be fair, because it's Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, Spinning Crane Kick. Like everything gets nerfed by 8%. You can just read that. Detox now costs 10 energy. So overall nerf, and I think it's normal because from what I've seen in arenas, in BGs, whenever it pops, it doesn't pop often, to be fair. In duels, Windwalkers are really bursty. So I don't know in PvE how it works, but in PvP at least they are really one-shotting. So it is deserving a nerf. Paladin got a buff on a few things. Like for example, Flash of Light healing increased by 20%, which is also going to apply for Retribution Paladin. Word of Glory healing by 10% as well, also good for Retribution Paladin and Holy Priest. Dusk buff of Dusk and Down reduces your damage taken by 4%. So everything that is passive is going to get nerfed. So that's basically always going to be, because they want you to have to be active to defend yourself. Protection Paladin, I don't know too much about it, so I'm going to make you pause the video if you want to read that, but I currently don't have an opinion about it. Retribution Paladin got even more of a buff to Word of Glory, so it's going to be 20% plus also 10%, so that's very good, and especially if you're going to play the Hero Tons. Herald of the Sun, I think, is going to give you a lot of like those self heals that you're going to want for Retribution Paladin. I really like that. Priest got a few changes here. Flash shield increased by 20%. Power word shield absorb amount increased by 20%. Power word life healing increased by 20%. Discipline Priest got a nerf on the Void Weaver, which again I understand, but it's not really fun to get nerfed every single time. Entropic Rift damage reduced by 30%. Void Blast damage reduced by 12%. Void Heart increases atonement healing by 20% plus 10%. So that is going to probably counter the nerfs towards healing, obviously. But they don't want you to deal too much damage. So that's what they are saying. Disc Priest got an overall nerf on healing. I know that's a buff. All healing is now no longer reduced by 33%, so that's good. Power word Radiance healing increased by 10%, Penance healing increased by 20%. So again, a bit of buffs here and there. Holy Priest healing healing increased by 20%. Holy Word, Serenity healing increased by 20%. That's actually like bigger buffs than Discipline Priest, because Penance is something you don't want to heal with, you want to do atonement healing with, so you could just say Penance damage increased by 20%, and that would be probably bigger for a Disc Priest, but for now they're not doing that. But those buffs are like pretty massive. Rogue, recuperated now triggers every 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds, so again passive healing is getting gutted. Shaman, so that's why I'm very happy, guys. I'm again, spoiler, I'm happy. Healing Surge, healing increased by 20%. I already like that. I like that feeling. Hero Talents, Unleash Life now calls an ancestor for 12 seconds. I also like that. Restoration Shamans, more power to you. Enhancement Shaman now. Boys, this is what I was waiting for. We have a few talents. I'm going to show you guys also on the talent tree. I don't know if it's going to be up to date right now, but I'm going to show you. So I see it's already up to date, by the way. Primordial Wave is now a 30-second CD instead of 45. Massive. Doomwinds is now a 1-minute CD. Massive. Now I will be playing Doomwinds like every single time. Like, I think there is no reason to not play it right now. 1-minute CD for 8-second duration. I like that. I can concur. You can actually put your bloodlust or your heroism, whatever, with Doomwinds every single time. And that's massive, guys. Like, people are not going to be able to defend themselves. So I really like that. I like that they actually made it that way. They still need to put it out of GCDs. In my opinion, it should be off GCD, but right now they're not doing it. I wish Ascendance was off GCD, but that's also not the case. So, but at least it's 60 seconds, which is massive. Casting Flame Shock, Frost Shock, considering will also initiate combat with melee auto attacks. That's a quality of life change, pretty much. Molten Assault range is increased by 4 yards, and whenever it's impacting someone, it's going to be visually a bit more impacting as well. Crash Lightning range is increased by 4 yards, a bit more easy to do some AoE, and it's also going to come into the personal resource display for the extra damage you're going to get. Earthen Weapon is no longer on personal resource display. Elemental Blast now correctly, so that's a bug fix pretty much. But the big thing, the following talents are now 1 point, which is Molten Assault, Improved Maelstrom Weapon, Witch Doctor's Ancestry. So I want to show you guys. This talent is now 1 point. The Improved Maelstrom Weapon. It's massive, because then you can just take whatever you want, and you can do pretty much a lot of stuff correctly. You're going to take Elemental Blast, for example, but you have like Doomwinds here, you have your Storms Wrath here. If you want to play Molten Assault, it's only 1 point. That's pretty good. What else is going to be 1 point? Witch Doctor's Ancestry, which is going to help you with getting talents that you want. They could still like do a few pruning here and there, but I think those 3 are going to be massive, regardless of what you want to do. So if you want to play like a PvP build, for example, I'm looking what I can take. I want to make it, I think that's quite good. Then you can take this, that's quite easy, it's only 1 point. And it's for the same amount of effects, so that's great, like it's not a nerf. Then you have Primordial Wave, which is a 30-second CD, there's no reason to not take it anymore, probably. And you can take, look, I'm going to do Doomwinds, I want to play a bit of Elemental Assault, why not? You have Lava Lash, you have your Wind Fury and your overall damage. You can, for example, say, look, I have my Lava Lash, and I don't really care about Ice Strike. You could also just say, look, I'm going to play a build like this. It could be. You could be playing this, and that could work. Obviously, I think you're going to still play with Ice Strike, but this could work in a PvP haste build, where you're going to have Lava Lashes and you're going to have big Storm Strikes, you're going to have multiple goes with, for example, Doomwinds go, or whenever you have like your Ascendance up, you're going to use your Wind Strikes instead of Storm Strikes, obviously. You have your Feral Spirits, which are going to be up like a lot. You could also like play around with, you can say, look, I'm going to disregard a few talents here and there. because I don't really care, but I do like the dual winds. I do like dual winds being able to do a lot of damage. So there's a lot of things that you can play around with just those 3 points being 1 point nodes. You have way more leeway on the choices you want to make to, let's say, play a full mastery build over a haste build, for example. So it depends on what you want to do, but I really like that. I actually am ecstatic about it. So right now, I'm very happy. So again, they could still do a few things like a full rework, but this is like something I always wanted. So I cannot complain. I think right now season 1 is like going to be feeling a bit better than Dragonflight. Restoration Druid, Shaman got a buff on Riptide, 20%, Unleash Life as well, 20%, Healing Wave as well, 20%, Ascendance now duplicates only 70% instead of 80%, Ancestral Guidance now transfers 10%. This is like, I think the Ancestral Guidance is dead, man. It's already very hard to take, but I think for Restoration Shaman, it's okay, I guess, because it's on the way of what you want to take. But Enhancement Shaman, it's difficult already, so it depends. I don't think it's going to nerf into the Enhancement Shaman talent tree, but it does seem like they want to cut like those passive AoE heals. And the Undulation can now be tracked through a counter on the Healing Wave in Healing Surge spell icon, so it's very easy to track it now. Warlock, so we have a few changes here and there. Nerfs on the Wither, obviously, so 30% instead of 50%, and reduce its duration by 15% instead of 25%. I think it's normal, it does too much damage. And Wither periodic damage decreased by 20%. So on the PTR beta, Wither was doing like times 5 the damage of the other spells from Warlocks. Like, it's corruption basically, but it does so much more damage that you are kind of show-hoarding to Hellcaller. There's no way you're not playing Hellcaller if you're like playing an Affliction Warlock. Even Destruction Warlock, Wither is really strong because it's an instant immolate, and God knows like you want to cost a bit less. So just for that reason, it might be very meta. You have your demonic souls now benefits from the following interactions, which is Mastery, Master, Demonologist, and Shadow Touched. Soul Anathema is now affected by Mastery, Potent Afflictions, and also Master Demonologist, so it's a buff. Demonology, Succulent Soul now increases the damage of Hand of Gul'dan by 60%, Walls 20%. That's pretty massive as well, because Hand of Gul'dan does a lot of damage as well with this build. Destruction Warlock, Shadow Burn damage increased by 80%, guys. We are so back. Damage increased by 5% for instant rate. Soul Fire 5%. Channel Demon Fire 10%. Summon Infernal damage increased by 10%. Yes, they are going to really make it, like, they're going to make it fun. That's good. Like, Shadow Burn is always going to be like such a flavorful spell to use in PvP. I look forward to test it and to play around it on the beta, more precisely on the preseason, because I think preseason is going to be a testing ground for a lot of stuff, like I said on multiple videos. Warriors, so we have a few changes about the pain and gain, which is like passive healing, again, impending victory, also nerfed by 10%, which is like, again, self-heals. Protection warriors got a few changes here and there, so you can see the changes here. You can pause it if you want to. Again, it's like mostly defensive buffs or defensive nerfs, so you have a bit of everything. PvP, and I'm also very happy about that. Stacking Deserter debuff now shows that it's applied when leaving a soul shuffle or battleground blitz is now applied account wide, guys. So it means that if you're leaving, you cannot hop to another character and play that. No. If you're leaving, you're going to be stacked Deserter debuff on every single character, and it's going to be awesome. I like that. They should have done that for Dragonflight. I don't know why they didn't do that, but now it is in the War Within, especially Battleground Blitz, because I am very scared of the leavers situation there, but they just need to be very hard for the players leaving games. Rig's damage is no longer reduced by 20% in PvP combat, and is no longer reduced by 40% in PvP combat when used from stealth, so that's a big buff, especially for Restoration Druids and Feral Druids, I guess also for Guardian, maybe. Shred damage is also no longer reduced, ferocious bite as well, 24%, no more reduced. Bear form armor is no longer reduced by 20% as well. Moonkin form as well, 20%. Rip damage is no longer reduced by 18%. So overall, just unnerving like those nerfs, which is good. And here they're actually, I wonder if they're just going to reset everything, because basically they're resetting everything to like like just normal values. So shooting stars becomes a normal value compared to PvE, umbral embrace as well, and star surge as well. Feral druids, rampant person like also gets resetted to normal values. Feral frenzy as well, primal wrath as well. A fixed issue where ravage hero talent was reduced by 25%, which is no longer anymore. Restoration druid healing is no longer increased by 8% in PvP only. This is a typo, I think. It's initial healing effect is no longer reduced by 11%, but it will be increased by 25%. So regrowth is going to be insane. Mastery is unnerved as well, 15%. So it's going to be also quite insane. And live bloom as well, unnerved. Arcane mages, we have a new PvP talent. So Chrono Shift was a normal talent, I think. They just added onto the PvP section now. Arcane Barrage reduces movement speed by 50%, increases your movement speed by 25%. So that's quite big because you didn't really have the talents sometimes to pick it. Now you can just take it without a problem. Aether attunement damage increase to your secondary targets is no longer decreased by 50%. Prodigious Siphons also just reset to normal values, and Arcane Blast as well. Unleashed Inferno damage bonus to Flame Strike is no longer reduced by 100% in PvP combat, so that's a nerf. Fire Blast unnerved, Flame Patch unnerved, Fire Blast unnerved, Dragon's Breath unnerved, or unbuffed, Flame Strike unbuffed, and Living Bomb unbuffed. So they are going to reset everything so they know what's up, I guess. Glacial Spike as Glacial Assault as well, no longer reduced. Ice Lance is now increased by 95% in PvP combat. It looks like a typo, man. So Ice Lance is going to do insane amount of damage. Sprinting Ice is going to do a lot less AoE damage, 20% instead of 80%. Glacial Spike is no longer decreased by 11%, so they're going to reset a few talents here and there by Glacial Spike, Ice Nova, Blizzard, and Flurry. Ancient Teachings. So overall, I think that's it's hard to judge because it does feel like they're still going to have to PvP tune, most likely. Monk, Ancient Teachings is now increased by, so that's a overall like balancing. So it's buffed in PvE and nerfed in PvP, so it's going to be unchanged in PvP pretty much. Power Word, Radiant Ceiling is no longer increased by 10%, so that's also balanced out with the buff from PvE. Warlock, so they're nerfing the self heals pretty much. So health funnels effect is no longer increased by 20%. Infirmity is no longer reduced by 50% in PvP combat. Siphon Life damage is no longer increased by 20%. Nobody was playing Siphon Life anyways. Fixed Shooter calls Haunt to deal no damage in PvP combat. Demonology Warlock, so we have Pact of Eredrin. Doombolt damage is no longer reduced in PvP. Demonic Strength as well. Dreadbite as well. And Demon Bolt as well. Destruction Warlock, Conflict damage is no longer reduced. Incinerate is no longer reduced. Immolate is no longer reduced. And Shadowburn is no longer increased. So pretty much a reset. We have then Warrior. Thunderous Roar damage is no longer reduced. Shockwave as well. Armor to the Teeth is no longer increased by 45%. The War Within Warrior class sets are now 50% effective in PvP combat. 8 was 0%, so that was a nerf, a bug issue probably. Arms Warrior damage is no longer decreased by 30%. So overall, unnerving PvP combats and unbuffing PvP combat around Arms Warriors, we have again auto attack damage and normal values fueled by violence as well, deep wounds as well, cleave as well, overpower, execute, test of might as well, bloodletting, dreadnought, and also fix an issue with strength of arms overpowers. So that's a good thing as well. Then you have Fury, Bloodbath, also unnerved. Whirlwind unnerfed, Bloodthirst unbuffed, Annihilator unbuffed, Dancing Blade's auto attack speed is also no longer decreased, so that's also unnerfed. Raging Blow is no longer increased, so it's unbuffed. Then you have Protection Paladin, they still got like something as well, so that's unnerfed on Rand. Shield Slam unnerfed as well, Battering Effect also unnerfed. And then you have rewards here, which are like around raids, I think, raid rewards, 1.5 minute CD on Treasure Transmitter, and primary stat buff increase accordingly. So overall, I like those changes. I think the PvP side of things is still going to be like going to change before season 1. It's always like in pre-season where they're like deciding to do PvP tuning. Overall, I'm very happy with Enhancement Shaman. I'm very happy on a few changes here and there, on Frosty as well. We're eating good, so we still have like the issues where Enhancement Shaman can still feel very bad in PvP. In season 1 often because they nerfed it in pre-season, but hopefully they're not doing it, and we'll have to see how it's going to play. But I'm looking forward to. Again, thank you for watching this video. Really, I appreciate you. It has been a very long video. But yeah, I'm looking forward for the War Within. The War Within will be awesome. Again, have a great day. Bye.